Did you know that only 7% of Americans are considered metabolically healthy? That means a staggering 93% of us are walking around with some degree of metabolic dysfunction, and many don't even know it. Insulin resistance, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, they've become so common, they're practically being normalized. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's okay or inevitable. And when it comes to nutrition, the confusion is real. Should you fast or eat more frequently? Go low carb or cycle your carbs? Count calories or ignore them? One expert says oatmeal is heart healthy. The next says it's a metabolic nightmare. It's no wonder women are left spinning their wheels, overwhelmed and unsure of what actually works. That's why I'm so excited to welcome back my friend Ben Azadi to the show. Ben is a leading voice in the world of metabolic health and the best-selling author of Keto Flex and his latest book, Metabolic Freedom. He's the host of the top-ranked Metabolic Freedom podcast and a trusted resource when it comes to cutting through the noise and helping people regain control of their blood sugar, hormones, and energy. In this episode, we are going to dive into the real root causes of metabolic dysfunction and, more importantly, how to fix it. If you're ready to stop guessing and start healing, this one is for you, ladies. So welcome back, my friend, Ben Azadi.
Oh, what an awesome introduction. Karen, I love you. I'm grateful to be back with you. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Let's do this.
Always, always. I could have you on every week, Ben. Honestly, just to chat with you. It'd be
Yes.
great.
Yes. I love it.
So you got this new book coming out. First of all, when is it coming out? Maybe it's already
May
out by the time
May
this comes out.
13th. Yeah,
May
May 13th.
13th.
Yes.
That's not pre-order. That's out.
Pre-order is available now. Yep,
Pre-order is
exactly.
available now. All
Yeah.
right.
May 13th is the release date, but we have some special things we're giving away for those who order, which we'll talk about later.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear. All right. So I want to start with just exactly what I was just talking about, which is most people don't know that they are metabolically unhealthy because 7% of the population really does not leave very many people
Yeah.
in that category. So that's one, very scary. But two, how does somebody find out where their metabolic status lies? Because when women hit midlife and their hormones kind of start going south, we can be very prone to becoming metabolically unhealthy just from the shift in hormones.
Yeah.
And I really want women to be able to look at their labs and know what they're looking for to say, okay, where is my metabolic range here? Am I unhealthy? Like, how far do I got to go here? Or, how far do I have to come up? That kind of thing. So tell me about first the ranges that we're going to be looking for on labs and where do you want to see them and what
Yeah.
markers?
Yeah, exactly. Really important question. And that study is crazy. 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. That means if you looked at 100 people on the street, 93 of them are dealing with some sort of metabolic dysfunction. It's atrocious and it's not supposed to be this way. So
And I
with
could just imagine, sorry to interrupt, the kids. Like, what are
I
the
know.
rates of children now
Yeah.
having insulin
Having
resistance and
diabetes, insulin resistance,
diabetes?
fatty liver disease, these are things that were rare when we were younger. Now it's
Mhm.
it's very common. It's unfortunate, but we have the solutions, which is the good news. We'll talk about the solutions. So yeah,
Mhm.
during perimenopause and menopause, there is a hormonal shift. You are so masterful, Karen, as you explain this to your ladies and to the world. One of those shifts is that you become more insulin resistant. And insulin is a really important hormone to key on, to focus on. And you talked about lab testing. Here's why I would recommend insulin, because in the book, Metabolic Freedom, I make the case that when you have chronically high levels of insulin, it's the first domino to fall that triggers a cascade of metabolic diseases. When I say metabolic diseases, I'm referring to first high blood pressure, prediabetes, and eventually full on diabetes, autoimmune conditions, cancer, heart disease. But it starts with that insulin increasing. And a lot of people are testing, a lot of women are testing their fasting blood sugar levels and maybe also their A1C, which is the 3-month average of their blood sugar. And those are really good markers to test as well. And I'll explain the optimal ranges for those. But even better than those ranges or those tests is a fasting insulin, because the studies are showing, and I put a study in the book from the Whitehall 2 study, that you could have insulin resistance for, on average, 6 to 14 years without your fasting blood sugars changing or the A1C changing, because the pancreas is so busy producing massive amounts of insulin to deal with the excess glucose until it cannot. Then the blood sugars rise dramatically. Then you'll see it change on the fasting blood sugar and on the A1C. So I would recommend a fasting insulin blood test as one of the most important tests to get done to see how sensitive your insulin levels are. We want to see a fasting insulin between 3 and 6. That is the really small functional range that shows healthy levels of insulin. If you see it at 10, 14, 21, showing signs of insulin resistance, once it goes over 20, that's full-blown insulin resistance. Unfortunately, there's 2 issues here. Number one, most doctors do not order that test. They don't order a fasting insulin. They'll probably order a fasting glucose or an A1C, but not really a fasting insulin, because there's not a medication that they could prescribe for high insulin. Number 2, if they do order it, the reference ranges on that fasting insulin is usually between 3 and 25 or 3 and 28, which is crazy, because if it comes back as 21 or 17, it's not flagged as an issue, but that's an issue. That's insulin resistance. So I would recommend getting that insulin test. It's a blood test. If you have to pay out of pocket and not go through insurance, it's very cheap. And then, get a fasting glucose. We want to see that between 70 and 90 milligrams per deciliters. That's a good fasting glucose. But keep in mind, that's a snapshot of that moment. Then an A1C is also a good test, and you want to see that ideally under 5.2%, at 5.2% or below. Yeah.
Really? Okay. I've always said 5.4 or below. So you're even more strict than I am.
I'm a little bit more strict. Yeah. So I'm thinking 5.4% or below is fine. That's totally fine. But in terms of like function, extending your lifespan, optimal ranges, and functional range, I would say 5.2% or below.
Ooh, all right. That can be tough for sure. Mine, I always had the perfect, it was 4.7, I think, for the majority of my life. And then I hit menopause and it jumped to 5.4. And I'm like, what?
Your A1C?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a dramatic increase.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also cholesterol goes up. And what are your thoughts on that? So, because in the keto world, of course, they're like, oh, LDL is okay, and we want some LDL, and it's not the demon that we think that it is. What are you looking for there?
There are a lot of moving parts with cholesterol
Is.
and heart disease. Let's get into it, because this is an important topic, and I have a lot of students who this is the most common questions I get is, hey, my cholesterol's up, or should I be worried about eating all these fats? My doctor says saturated fats are not good for you. First of all, I'll start off by saying this. Cholesterol is the building blocks of your hormones. It builds your cell membranes, your brain function. It is vital for health and vitality and hormone health. And total cholesterol alone as a marker is almost meaningless. It doesn't really give you much data. You want to look at all the moving parts here. So get a total cholesterol. And I would only be concerned if a total cholesterol was low, not a high total cholesterol, because studies actually show people die with heart disease, more people die with heart disease with normal to low cholesterol than high cholesterol. So I'm only looking at a total cholesterol to see if it's low, not high. LDL is also not a meaningless marker like total cholesterol, but it's not giving a total LDL is not giving you the full picture. Total LDL is showing you the total amount of LDL particles in the body, but not the type of LDL particles. So that's where getting what's called an NMR test done, which is a nuclear magnetic resonance. It's just essentially looking at the particle sizes of those LDL particles. And you see if there's a pattern how much pattern A, how much pattern B of those LDL particles. So just to unpack that for your audience, pattern A is the good pattern. It's the large, fluffy LDL particles that actually support longevity, support the immune system. They freely circulate in the bloodstream. They don't get lodged into the arteries and cause heart disease. Pattern B, so think B bad, are the bad, small, sticky particles that get lodged into the arteries, that create atherosclerosis, that create heart disease. But if you just saw total LDL, it doesn't give you an idea of how much of it is bad, how much of it is good. So ask for the particle sizes, and you want the majority of almost all of those particles to be the good, large, and fluffy pattern. Then on top of that panel, you want to get your HDL levels tested, which is high density
Mm-hmm.
lipoprotein. That's kind of like your janitorial system to clean out the plaques in your arteries. And ideally, I want to see that over 60. Usually I'm around 65, 70 personally. And then your triglyceride levels are another marker, which is looking at fat in your bloodstream, essentially, and inflammation in your body. And ideally, we want to see that under 100, but even better under 70. And you could also take your triglycerides total, HDL total, and get a ratio. So you divide
Okay.
your total triglycerides by your total HDL. And if it's at 1.5 or below, you're at low risk of heart disease. If it's higher than that, the higher it goes, the higher your risk. Once you get all that done, you also want to look at your inflammatory markers because it is the inflammation that drives the heart disease. The cholesterol is like a firefighter there to put out the fire. It's putting out the inflammation. So looking at your inflammatory markers play a big role in understanding your risk of heart disease. So that will be high sensitivity C-reactive protein, HSCRP. Ideally, you want to see that under 1, even better under 0.5, where mine usually is. And then homocysteine would be another inflammatory marker that you want to see in the single digits. And I would throw in fasting insulin as an inflammatory marker as well that you
Mm.
want to see between 3 and 6. When I interviewed Dr. Philip Ovadia, who is a world-renowned heart surgeon, he's done heart surgery on over 5,000 patients. He made the case, and he's right. There's only one cause of heart disease, which is damage to the blood vessels. There are multiple things that cause that. And I asked him, out of the multiple things he listed, what's at the top of what damages those blood vessels? You know what he said, Karen?
Sugar.
High, high levels of insulin, sugar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Same thing. Because when
Yeah.
you eat sugar, you get high insulin. So yeah, high levels of insulin. So that's why I would recommend insulin as one of those markers to test.
Okay, so got a question here for you.
Yes, yes, yes.
When it comes to when we're looking at these labs, let's say you are eating a high fat diet, like you're eating animal protein, maybe you're following a ketogenic diet where you've got a lot of good fats coming in, and your LDL is up. Maybe it's over range and being flagged as too high. Can we look at triglycerides with that to go, okay, if the triglycerides are normal, but the LDL is over range, does that make it okay? Like that it's like they're reading the good fats, not the bad fats, or does that not how it works?
Well, that would be an idea that could point you in the right direction, but I wouldn't look at that as like being the 100%. Like if your triglycerides are fine, the total LDL doesn't matter. Um, it's a good sign though that probably, like to your point, Karen, a lot of those fats are not the oxidized variety and your body's metabolizing well. And
Yeah.
even though your total LDL is high, it might not be an issue. My total LDL, I mean, this might shock you, but my total LDL has gone as high as 350.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
And my
that.
and my
I've heard
total
these things.
cholesterol
Yeah.
has gone to 450.
Oh my
Yet
gosh.
everything else is optimal. Fasting insulin, C-reactive protein. I mean, all the things I mentioned. So it wasn't a concern, but you have to look at the full picture here and see what else is going on. It's not as simple as total LDL and total
Yeah.
cholesterol. It's just not.
Because was that reading just the fact that you were eating a lot of good fats?
Yeah. And I'm rare. I'm considered what's called a lean mass hyperresponder, meaning there's a percentage of lean individuals who, when they increase their dietary fat and cholesterol or do something like carnivore, they see a dramatic increase in their cholesterol and LDL. It's not dangerous. It just see a dramatic increase. I'm one
Hmm.
of those people. As
Hmm.
soon as I have a day where I start introducing carbohydrates, that dramatically drops. But it's when I'm consistently doing carnivore that happens.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people. I'm a subset of those people that have a huge response to eating like a carnivore diet.
Yeah. And I've heard that like it's a genetic piece that,
Yeah.
If you're showing really high cholesterol when you're a healthy person, that it could be a genetic thing that makes it show up more, or creates higher LDL, something along those lines. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard from just the doctor, that I work with in our clinic. He's always like, triglycerides are fine, LDL is high, but don't worry about it because your triglycerides are fine. So that's where
Yeah.
I kind of like, he always would say that to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, then. Great. So
That,
there's
that, that
just like
makes
mixed
sense.
reviews, right? Like there's mixed
Yeah.
reviews because some doctors, well, most doctors would look at somebody like yourself and be like, oh, you're going to have a heart attack any day
I know.
now.
Got to prescribe a statin, right? And it's no surprise
Yes.
because the statin industry made $15.4 billion last year. So they don't want us to know this truth.
Yeah. Isn't it one of the highest, most prescribed medications is a statin?
It is. You know what I
Yeah.
found out recently that's even more than that? It was a shocker. A guest had shared it with me, and I said, "No way, that's true." It's antihypertensive medication that actually
Oh,
makes more money than statins. It's like a $25 billion industry per year. Statins are 15 billion. So they're both really high, but I was shocked to find out that blood pressure medication was actually number one.
and can't statins then negatively affect things because now you're not getting the good cholesterol?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We don't want to lower the cholesterol
Yeah.
because a lot of that you might lower the bad cholesterol, but you lower the good stuff. Now you starve your sex hormones, you starve the brain. When I interviewed Dr. Nathan Bryan, he's a world-renowned nitric oxide researcher, and he's a great
Hmm.
friend of mine who I've done a lot of interviews with him. He has studies that he's published that has shown when your total cholesterol is under 200, like when you take a statin, you tend to get it under 200, it strips nitric oxide from the blood vessels, which creates vasoconstriction, which actually raises blood pressure and increases your risk of heart disease. So it's
Oh
actually
my
the
gosh.
opposite of what you want. You're actually increasing your risk of heart disease by creating vasoconstriction, not to mention erectile dysfunction in men, low libido in women, depletion in sex hormones, and all the other negative things that happen when you restrict your cholesterol levels.
Well, people need to hear that. I mean, if it's one of the most prescribed drugs, you can think of how many women are probably listening to this right now who are on a statin.
Yeah.
And that's scary. And that's not something you're being told. It makes me so
No,
mad that we are
I
not
know.
told these things. I was listening to a cancer doctor talk about the fact that she's like a leading cancer doctor with breast. She was a breast cancer surgeon, Dr. Jen Simmons. Have you talked with her before?
I know of Jen.
Oh,
Yeah, she's
she's
great. Yeah.
brilliant. She's brilliant. But, she was talking about the fact that we give women post breast cancer tamoxifen and other drugs that block their estrogen. And she's like, heart disease is the number one killer of women. Our
Yeah.
risk of getting heart disease is way higher than getting breast cancer or even getting reoccurring breast cancer.
Wow.
And yet we're stopping all estrogen, telling these women, don't you dare go on estrogen ever again in your life. We got to block it all. And then their heart's suffering because of it. We know that women that are on estrogen therapy have a massive reduction in developing breast cancer, or sorry, heart disease. So she's like, what are we doing? We're now raising their risk of developing heart disease. So I just feel so sorry for women that they don't really have that an option. Or feel that they don't have an option. So
Wow.
anyways, yeah. And birth control, that's another one that gets me so
Yeah.
fired up. But
Oh,
anyways, okay. I want to ask you a question about insulin resistance because I remember reading Jason Fung's book, who's
yeah.
brilliant,
Yeah.
and him describing insulin resistance in a way that I had never heard before, which was not that we're resistant to it, but almost that I think he was talking about the cell just being basically full and that it can't take on anymore
Yeah.
sugar. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, he's right. I love Dr. Fung. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He wrote a nice endorsement for the book. He's been a huge
Yes, I saw that.
mentor and colleague of mine. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, so the more accurate term would be hyperinsulinemia versus insulin resistance. The cell is full. It's full of sugar. It's full of glucose. Those receptor sites are also inflamed from cellular inflammation. And the analogy that he gives is really, really good. It's about what happens when you put on headphones and listen to music. And let's say you listen to music at 50% volume on your phone and you're listening to the headphones on Spotify. This music is playing through your phone and you don't take a break. You just listen to that music 24/7. You go to sleep listening to the music. After about a few months of doing that, the volume is going to feel like it's decreasing. So instead of taking a break from listening to the music, you increase the volume to 60%. Continue listening for months, same issue happens, and you keep doing that for years until you're at 100% volume on that phone, on the headset. And what's happening? You're going deaf to the screams of the music. Okay, same thing with hyperinsulinemia. When we're constantly eating high carbohydrate foods, processed junk food, and snacking and grazing, the insulin is the music in this scenario, and the receptor sites are the ears that need to hear the music, and you're going deaf to the screams of insulin. It is becoming resistant because it's going deaf, but it's also full of glucose and sugar, and it can't get into the cell. Combine that with the inflammation around the cell membrane, you have a big issue here. And it's not just the insulin that can't get in, it's all your hormones now. It's the estrogen, it's the testosterone, it's the nutrients. The cell is inflamed. Good things can't get in, bad things can't get out. So that's exactly what's happening. And he's right. The term insulin resistant is okay, but the term hyperinsulinemia is a more accurate statement to what's happening there.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, of course.
It makes more sense. It makes more sense. And I wish they would change that in the medical literature to explain it properly.
I agree.
When somebody is doing everything right, Ben, and they're eating properly, they're very health conscious, they're exercising, they're eating a low carb diet, they're replacing their hormones even. So they've got all of those bases covered. And yet they still have insulin resistance. Or they maybe, have a history of having struggled with blood sugar problems. What are the environmental toxins that could, what are the other things that could be driving this besides diet?
It's funny that when you were just sharing that, when they're doing everything right and they're still in, I was saying toxins.
Toxins,
I mean,
right?
And then you just said, so you nailed it. That's exactly the case. There's a set of toxins that I talk about in chapter 5 called diabetogens. This is a new classification of toxins that are in the form of heavy metals. When they enter the body, the science, the literature shows that it disrupts the beta cell function, which is where you produce insulin, which triggers prediabetes and then full-blown diabetes. And other studies are showing that 30 to 50% of these diabetic cases in the US are from these diabetogens, even if their diet is clean, even if they're fasting and doing all these biohacks. If they have a high toxicity load of these heavy metals, that's what's going to happen. They're doing everything right and they still can't reverse this diabetes and the obesity or whatever they're dealing with. So we need to address this. This was the story with my dad. My dad had these, I didn't know they were called diabetogens back then because they didn't have a term for it. But when I start to look back, because my dad passed away in 2014 from the complications of diabetes. It's one of I dedicate the book to him. And when I look back at some of the things he was doing and I just trying to put the pieces to the puzzle together, his diet was not great and that definitely contributed to his diabetes. But he had a mouthful of silver amalgam fillings that he had for my entire life. So for 20 plus years, actually 30 years is when I was 30 years old when he passed. For those who don't know, silver amalgam fillings, 50% of them, every filling contains a super toxin called mercury, which vaporizes into the brain and creates systemic inflammation. It's a diabetogen. And I had 8 fillings in my mouth for 20 years. And it wrecked my health. I had to get them out safely from a biological dentist. So these are things you want to identify. These heavy metals, lead is also an issue, cadmium, mercury, as I mentioned. But when you have a high toxicity load like this, you're going to feel like you're just spinning your wheels. You're doing everything right. Now, in chapter 5, I give some really practical things for you to do to open up your downstream detox pathways, sweating, bowel movements, sauna, lymphatic drainage, coffee enemas, castor oil packs, bitter-rich foods. There's a lot of things we can do about this, but if you're not addressing the toxicity issue and your detoxification pathways, for a lot of people, they'll spin their wheels and feel like they're doing everything right and they're not making any progress.
Yeah, I feel that that was what happened to me for sure. I don't have any mercury fillings in my teeth. I've never had a filling my entire life. And so I never thought that heavy metals were a problem for me. But I was going down that road of what's the matter? I've got all these health problems. I've got a thyroid problem. I'm just gaining weight even though I'm eating perfectly. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I'm doing everything right. I'm exercising. And I just kept gaining weight. And I just started to go, okay, I'm going to start going through everything, one by one to kind of eliminate what could be causing this. And I thought, well, I'll check to see if I have mold because I really didn't think I had heavy metals. And so I thought, oh, I'll check mold. And I did the visual acuity test
Yeah.
first. And it said, you don't have mold, but it looks like you're fighting a toxin, could be heavy metals. And I'm like, really? I'm like, all right. So I go to my naturopath. I get the IV provocated pre and post heavy metal test. And it came back that my mercury was as high as it could go on the charts. And so was my lead.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. And that's how I actually got into Dr. Pompa's work, which I know you're
Yeah.
a huge fan of as well.
Yeah.
And started going down that rabbit hole and realized, oh my gosh, this could be driving my weight loss resistance
Yeah.
and my hormone problems. And then I interviewed Dr. Joe Pizzorno, and he did have you ever interviewed him?
No, I have not.
He did a fascinating study. It's in his book where he actually had Canadians, there were Canadian ranchers and farmers, where he worked with them for months and he did all this heavy metal testing and they were riddled with it. And they all of them had blood sugar dysregulation.
Hmm.
And he's like, and he was the first person that I heard say it can cause blood sugar dysregulation, which is just like, what? I think that that's crazy, but it would sure make sense to so many women that are dealing with weight loss resistance when they're doing everything right, eating perfectly, and yet they still have blood sugar problems. Maybe it's time to look at your toxic load.
I agree. It's a huge issue these days. That's why I had to write a whole chapter on it. And then, yeah, Dr. Pompa has taught me so much about these environmental toxins. I also had a mold issue, silver fillings issue.
And will
Uh,
mold do the same thing then?
yeah,
Yeah.
they're mycotoxins. They're nasty toxins that you accumulate in the body as well. It affects people with different symptoms.
Mhm.
It could trigger prediabetes and blood sugar dysregulation, not as much as these heavy metals, which are more of the diabetogen variety. I'm going to check out this study. I took a note here because it sounds interesting with this Canadian
Yeah.
study.
Yeah.
But with the toxins, these toxins are called obesogens. They create obese human beings and obese animals, and it's not theory. There are studies that show this, credible studies that show this time after time. When these toxins enter the body wants to survive. It's the number one priority for the human body. So it activates a pathway, the body does, to shuttle these toxins out of the bloodstream. It's called the PPAR gamma pathway. Similar to insulin, insulin's job is to shuttle glucose out of the bloodstream into the cells. PPAR gamma's job is to shuttle toxins from the bloodstream into the cells because the body does not want these toxins to freely circulate enter vital organs and kill you. So it shoves them into your fat cells. They're called lipophilic toxins, fat-loving toxins, and there's a lot of room in your fat cells. The solution to pollution is dilution. So the body could dilute these toxins by putting them in your adipocytes. Oh, there's no room in your adipocytes. Okay, it'll increase the size of those fat cells. Oh, you run out of room? It'll create new fat cells. And then here's what happens, Karen. We start to diet, we do keto, we do fasting, we start burning fat for fuel, which we want to do.
Mhm.
But if you have a high toxicity load, every time you burn fat for fuel, yes, you could burn fat for fuel. You dump these toxins and you cannot burn these toxins for fuel. So you end up auto intoxicating yourself. Then your metabolism gets smart and says, every time I burn fat, I dump toxins. We reabsorb those toxins. I'm just going to stop burning fat. Enter weight loss resistance, hormone resistance, and it's a
Ooh.
it's a big issue here. It's a toxicity issue.
And keto resistance?
Can be
Like in the
that
sense
too.
of like you can't get your body won't drop into ketosis.
Yeah, you can't burn fat. You're just stuck burning sugar. Yes,
I
it's a
feel like that happened to
neurotoxicity
me
issue.
too. Like I tried to go keto for months and my body would
Yep,
not go into ketosis.
it's a toxicity issue.
Ah. Yes. Well, something to look. Where can people like? How should people go about testing for that kind of thing? Like, you're very into that world. What would
Yeah.
you say is the best way to test? I've done quicksilvers. I've done many challenge tests, and I've done hair tests, urine, blood. I've done it all.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about each of them. There's no perfect test, I don't think.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's no perfect test. There are different tiers to them. So let's go through all three of them that you mentioned and what I think would be the best option.
Yeah.
You have blood testing. Now, blood testing for heavy metals is giving you an idea of acute heavy metal toxicity. So if you had a whole bunch of like tuna fish, which it has a lot of mercury, and you did a blood test right after, it'll show high levels of mercury because it's an acute exposure. It's not showing what's in your cells and what's chronically been stored throughout the extent of that exposure. So I'm not a big fan of blood because you're not going to get a good measurement of what's actually being stored in the body. Hair testing, I love hair mineral testing for
Hmm.
mineral imbalances,
Hmm.
not so much for heavy metals because it's just showing what your body is getting rid of, not what's stored. So it might give you an idea of that you have a lot of toxins, but a lot of the time you could think you're safe because those toxins are just so deeply stored into your tissues that you're not even getting rid of them. And you do a hair mineral test for heavy metals and it shows nothing, and you think I'm safe.
Hmm.
That's not necessarily the case. The best way to do it is with a urine test and using a challenging chelation agent, like you mentioned. DMSA is the one we usually use, but you need to be on that. The ideal way to do it is to be on that chelation agent, like DMSA, every 4 hours. First, you take a mega dose to challenge it out of the bones and the tissues, but then you stay on that DMSA for actually 3 days, and in every 4 hours you take it because then there's going to be recirculation. So I say all that to make sure you're testing the right way.
Hmm.
Doctor's data 24-hour urine challenge test is the one that we use with Dr. Pampa in our group, and work with a practitioner on it because you got to know what you're doing. You got to use a chelation agent. You have to challenge it out of the body, and then you have to stay on that agent for a few days so you don't auto intoxicate or recirculate those toxins.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing for people to hear because people have gotten very, very sick by taking chelators just very short period of time rather than every 4 hours for 3 days. And they reabsorb those toxins and get very sick.
It happens a
Yeah.
lot. They feel
Hmm.
awful, and also I know Dr. Pampa hates, and he uses that word. He hates this IV chelation therapy, like
Oh,
as
yeah.
a detox method, because yes, you're gonna pull toxins during the whatever 2 hours you're doing that IV chelation, but then what happens next? Like you have all those toxins circulating, and you would have to continue to go back and do that IV every few hours for it to actually be done the right way. So there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. Find a skilled naturopath practitioner that could teach you how to do this the right way.
Which actually not too many naturopaths know either how to do it
Ah,
properly. Because
that's
that's who did
unfortunate.
my IV chelation,
Oh,
is my
really? So,
naturopath.
okay, then just go connect with Dr. Pampa. Just go to his
Yeah,
website
there's
and he's the
there's
master.
Pampa. I think Quicksilver is a really good
Or
one.
another resource, yeah.
Andy Cutler, I'm on the fence about. I did do that protocol for a while, and I found that it was too low of doses, that it was causing toxicity because of the low dose. I find high dose works better, but yeah, so there's many different things. It's a very confusing world. I've spoken a ton about this, you guys. I've had so many guests on to talk about heavy metals. I've spoken with Dr. Pompa.
Ah,
So definitely go, but you can just search my name, Karen Martel, heavy metals, and you're going to come up with a whole bunch of different stuff. So,
do it.
check it out, because
Important.
this is a huge driving factor. Another driving factor could be seed oils when it comes to blood sugar dysregulation, or is that more inflammation, which then the inflammation causes the blood sugar problems?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Yeah, the inflammation leads to the blood sugar dysregulation. Yeah, let's get into the seed oil. I know you wanted
We
to
got
get
to
into
get into
this.
the seed oils. Yeah. Because so for my listeners, I follow, of course, many different people, and one of the people that I follow is Dr. Sarah Ballantine, who's a very smart woman. She's been in the paleo space forever. She's one of the OGs of the paleo space. And she has come out recently in the last probably year or two talking about seed oils and how she was wrong about them. And she's saying seed oils are not what we thought they were. And yes, how, some of them are depending on how they've been processed, but that there is evidence showing that these can be good for your health. And that, of course, really pissed a lot of people off. And she's getting a lot of hate mail and hate comments. And she's just like, I'm going to stick to my guns here because this is what I've learned. This is what the research is showing me. Now, Ben here is also an expert on seed oils. And so I had asked him prior to this, like, what are your thoughts on this? Can you back this up? Can you, tell us about what is bad about the seed oils? And do we have to be so worried about them? Or are we changing our stance?
Yeah, this is a good topic because seed oils have become mainstream here in the United States and other countries as well. I don't know how much you talk about it in Canada, but in the US, it's a big topic these days.
Not as much as you guys talk about it. Like we don't have
Okay.
restaurants that say we're seed oil free.
Okay. Yeah, not
We don't
yet.
have that.
Okay. And we'll talk about that because some restaurants are using that and they're not really seed oil free. Anyways, let's talk
Okay.
about this debate first of all. So, first of all, it's important to understand there's a big difference between processed seed oils and unprocessed seed oils. Huge difference. I've been saying this for years. I actually think unprocessed, organic, cold pressed seed oils are completely healthy for you in the right amount.
Even like soy oil.
No, it needs to be
Okay.
the right source.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll give you an example of what I mean.
Okay.
Sunflower oil, if it's organic, cold pressed, never heated, could be great. It could
Okay.
be great for the cell membrane. So can sunflower oil. So there are a few sesame seed oil, but this is an exception because the majority of the seed oils out there are not like this. They are highly processed. So we could debate that seed oils are good for you, seed oils are bad for you. What type of seed oils, first and foremost? I don't think Sarah
Mhm.
Ballantyne is saying processed seed oils are good for you. Is she saying that? Or is she saying
No,
there's
I
a difference?
don't think so. I don't
Okay,
think so.
she's
But she
probably
is
saying,
saying things like canola oil. I do believe she
and,
says is
and
okay.
she, and I don't really, I haven't studied exactly what she's saying
Hmm.
to see her viewpoint here. So, but I will say, well, I've seen other people cite different studies and they'll say this, who are pro seed oils, even if it's canola, which I'm not. They'll say it lowers LDL. And that's why it's actually lowering risk of heart disease. That's why the American Heart Association likes it. Well, we just had a full conversation, Karen, about why that's actually
Not good for
not
you.
something you might want to do,
Yeah.
right? So that really doesn't mean much to me. It's
No.
lowering total LDL. We just debunked that and why that's not even a
Hmm.
valuable marker. It's the particles. They say we don't see any changes in C-reactive protein when even with like years of canola oil use. Maybe that might change, take some time to change, but there's a test that actually looks at cell membrane inflammation that you see change faster than the C-reactive protein. But here's the thing: simple biology or chemistry, I should say. And Dr. Kay Shanahan is the master here, so we got to give her the credit. Um, she explains this so well. The chemical structure of these seed oils, they're called polyunsaturated fatty acids. The word poly means many. So these fats, these vegetable oils, contain many double bonds. The more double bonds a fat has, the more fragile they are, meaning they react to pressure, heat, and oxygen. Okay, so how do they process these seed oils? Pressure, heat, and oxygen, the three things that it reacts to negatively. And it creates this unstable inflammatory fat through the processing, and it goes rancid through the processing and it stinks. So they add chemical detergents and deodorizers to mask the smell. Then it's put into a bottle, and then we fry with it again over and over and over. And it's already unstable, it's already rancid, and we make it even worse by cooking with it. There are many studies showing that the processed seed oils are highly inflammatory. One study from Dr. Martin Grudfeld that I got from Dr. Kay Shanahan that I actually also put in my book showed that they looked at French fries cooked in vegetable oil and the aldehyde contents that were produced after you fried the French fry in vegetable oil. So aldehydes are cancer causing. When you smoke cigarettes, it also produces aldehydes. And it showed this: one French fry cooked in vegetable oil was equivalent to a tobacco cigarette smoked in regards to the aldehyde content. That's how inflammatory they are. And they stay in the body for a very long time. The
Mm.
half-life of these vegetable oils, it's 2 years. Not only is it 2 years, there's a process called lipid membrane reorganization that I talk about in chapter 4 of Metabolic Freedom that shows when you consume these processed fats, the vegetable oils, within hours, they are now embedded into the cell membrane and they are there for years. Half of them are removed 2 years later. That's why they're so inflammatory. They're found in 80% of our food supply. So there's a difference between processed and unprocessed. The majority of the ones out there are processed. Saturated fats have zero double bonds. They're very stable. They could take high heat. Monounsaturated fats have a single double bond. So mono would be like olive oil, avocado oil. Saturated fats would be butter, ghee, coconut oil, beef tallow, duck fat. So I don't know. Any clarifying questions there or anything else that I missed on that explanation?
No, that's great. I appreciate it. Because it's very controversial. It's also something that is really hard to get away from, especially here in
Oof.
Canada.
Yep.
And so I've chosen to kind of go, I can't stress about it. When I was just down in Austin and I was visiting with our friend Danny, or she's the blood sugar queen. So she's like, she said, "Oh," I said, "Let's go to that restaurant that we went to last time." And she said, "Oh, they're using seed oils now. We can't go there." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I can't go down that road of stressing about it because you can't escape it here. So
I love the face you made.
yeah, because it's just like, and I feel guilty. It's like, oh,
Well,
gotta practice what I preach.
I'm more aligned with Danny on that.
Okay.
But I
So
would
do you
still
ever eat French fries at a
only
restaurant?
no, never. Only if it's cooked
Okay.
in beef tallow.
Okay.
But even if it's cooked in beef tallow, I don't tend to eat French fries. But no, I
Okay.
haven't had a French fry cooked in vegetable oil in maybe 15 years. But I will say this. Um, I would still go to the restaurant, but I'll tell them I use my I have my seed oil
Yeah.
allergy card where I tell them
Yeah.
I'm allergic. So I would find ways to work around it. At the end of the day, I know even though I'm very diligent with not getting processed seed oils, I'm sure I'm getting it somewhere.
Yeah.
And to your point, if you do so many things right, you don't stress about it. That's also important. You don't want to freak out about these things. So the body is amazing. It could adapt. It's
Hmm.
not about the small hit. It's about the constant hit that we're getting. So, just make some changes to get less of it. You don't have to eliminate it completely, but get less of it and you're going to feel better.
Hmm. Okay, that's good. Intermittent fasting. That's my next thing. This is
Yeah.
Uh, I'm always on the fence with intermittent fasting because I've seen a lot of women harm themselves from following certain people and social media that it's, fast, fast, fast. And I meet these women that, for the last 2 years, they've been eating one meal a day and fasting, and they had great benefits in the beginning, but by the time I see them, they're a hot mess. They've got no more hormones. Their period went missing. They're gaining weight. They're losing their hair. They can't sleep. I mean, that's to the extreme for sure, but I do see it starting to become a problem. Uh, and so I needed there to be this happy medium between the two. What are your thoughts on it? Because I know that that's a big part of what you talk about in your book, Metabolic Freedom, and the importance of having, incorporating fasting into your life. How can we do this safely for women?
Yeah, it's an important question. Fasting is an incredible tool for women when it's done the right way. To your point, Karen, I call it responsible fasting.
Mm,
There's two
that's
different
good.
sides. I mean, there are practitioners that say women should never fast because it's too stressful for their hormones, and that's not good. I don't
I
agree with that
disagree.
thought.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
disagree.
because that's like saying you should never exercise because it's stress to the hormones, and that's not good for you. It's not
Yeah.
the stress. It's too much stress, or you're not adapting to it. So there's a fasting can be really powerful for women's hormones, women's health when it's done the right way. It's different for everyone. First, you want to get more metabolically flexible, more fat adapted before you do too much fasting.
Okay.
That could mean keto, or it could mean just low carb, paleo, but less carbs, more fat, less snacking in between meals, just to prepare your body for fasting. That is a good way to start this. Then, when you start fasting, you want to pay attention to a few things. First of all, you want to gradually build up that fasting window to adapt to it in a healthy way and not just throw in a OMAD 24-hour fast, but start with 12 hours, 14, 16. Sure, if you want to throw in a one meal a day fast once a week and you feel great doing that, that's fine. But to your point, doing it every day and doing it for weeks and months, that's not a good idea. You're going to undereat, you're going to undereat protein, it's too stressful. So it's the balance, the right amount of fasting. Here's how I use what I use for my perimenopausal and postmenopausal women in my group. By the way, my communities, my groups, 70% of them are women. Now 30% of them are men. And it's interesting because when I look at my YouTube analytics, it's the exact opposite.
Oh,
What that shows me is that women freaking take action and
yeah.
men don't as much as women do.
Yep.
So I've worked with a lot of women and I continue to do so. And one of the things I use for the ladies is heart rate variability as a gauge to see if the fast is working for you or against you, or these different biohacks and
Mm.
stressors. And I love heart rate variability because it's showing you the health of your nervous system. And if you're adapting to these
Ah,
stressors, which fasting is one of them. So I'll have them track their heart rate variability, which
yeah.
is looking at your balance between your sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, sympathetic, and then the balance of the rest, digest, parasympathetic, detoxification. We want a nervous system going back and forth. When your HRV goes up, that's showing a healthy response to the stress. If your HRV drops, that means it's too much of a stress. So with HRV,
It's
you could
great.
track it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You could track it with your Aura Ring, Apple Watch, Whoop Band. Yeah, you got the Aura Ring too. And
Ultra
you want,
human, actually.
oh, Ultra Human,
Yeah.
sorry. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Okay.
Like,
I'm
shame
not
on
one of the
you,
cool
Ben.
kids with the aura ring, but
Um, I don't want to get sidetracked, but I have a question about that. I want to know
oh,
your thoughts on
okay.
it. Okay,
Okay.
but so you want to get your personal HRV average, which is different for everybody. So
Yeah.
track it for 7 days and get your average. Let's say it's 35. Then you start to incorporate your fast. Let's say it's a 16-hour fast, and then pay attention to what changes happen to your HRV. If you see the HRV drop, let's say your average is 35, but then it goes to 27 after a 16-hour fast, that's showing you that your body didn't adapt to the stress and it was too much. You might want to close that fasting window and kind of rebuild and try it again later. But if you see your HRV stay the same or increase, you've adapted to the stress. Something else you can do is track your blood glucose and your blood ketones during the fast. Ideally, what you want to see is your glucose gradually decreasing during your fast and your ketones increasing. That is showing a good response to the fast. If you don't see that, if you see blood sugar stay the same or go up or
Go up.
ketones drop,
Yeah.
yeah, you're breaking down muscle, you're creating gluconeogenesis from cortisol. It's a bad sign and it kind of signals break the fast, don't keep fasting. So there's a
Okay.
few things you can do there, but it's amazing when you do it the right way. Great for gut health, great for hormones, great for the brain, great for ketone production. So I love it. I think it's nature's reset button, but it needs to be done the right way.
Yeah, I think that if you somebody put on a CGM and you get you testing your ketones either
Yeah.
through, a finger prick or the strips in the beginning, would you say? I hear that the strips are good in the beginning when you're first trying to go into ketosis, the
The
pee
urine
strips.
strips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
That
afterwards, your body's starting to utilize them so they won't show up.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, because that could be just an affordable way to kind of
Yep.
measure ketones in the beginning. But yeah, because you could see blood sugar go up even though you're fasting. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so
Yeah.
then the fasting could actually be making you gain weight because you're producing cortisol and it's too stressful for your system.
Yeah, exactly. You get the cortisol belly. Exactly. But you have no
Yeah.
idea. So it's important to track that and find out.
And usually women will just start fasting more,
I know.
harder. Oh,
I
well, I
know.
better then do a 3-day fast or a 5-day
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're
so
working
this is a
against.
great way to find out what can your body tolerate. And then it'll also tell you if you're too stressed out or not.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then you have to
Valuable
deal with
data.
that. Very
Valuable.
valuable.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. And also, probably, would you say detox first if there's any suspicion of heavy metals or molds that you should probably take care of that first before jumping into fasting and low carb diet? Because like you
Yeah.
said, we could release fat and then we could be
Yep. Yep. Address
creating
the
more problems.
toxicity. Yep. Address the toxicity part. First,
Yeah.
with the toxicity component, you remove that interference. So if it's the silver fillings, you get that removed safely. It's the mold, you fix that. So you got to remove the source and then
Right.
work on detoxifying it. And then you could add these at the same time, but first you have to remove the source.
Yeah. Which in and of itself can be stressful for the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to don't
Exactly.
pile up the stressors on top
Yep.
of one another. In kind of three different scenarios, if we've got the woman who's, super burned out, but yet overweight and insulin resistant, but her nervous system's fried, would you recommend somebody like that to be doing some degree of fasting and low carb diet because they're metabolically unhealthy, but yet their nervous system doesn't, it can't
Yeah, I would start.
tolerate too much?
I would start with a low carb diet first before
Okay.
I do any fasting with them. Just get them
Okay.
get fat adapted. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean they're doing caloric restriction. It doesn't mean they're depriving themselves. They're just simply lowering the carbs and replacing that with healthy fats and protein, and that's fine. That will not jack up the nervous system. It could help them get in the right direction with the blood sugars and the inflammation. And then eventually, as you work on that nervous system, you could start bringing in fasting. But I would start them off with 3 meals a day, no snacks in between, gradually decreasing carbs until we get them either into a low carb or keto approach while I increase healthy fats and protein.
Okay. What about the woman that is really healthy, like metabolically healthy? She's super fit. She's exercising all the time, 6 days a week, lifting weights, doing cardio, eating really well, probably maybe a lower carb diet or a combo paleo based diet or something. How much should someone like that be fasting that needs the fuel?
Well, it sounds like she's doing too much.
Right? She thinks she's perfect, but she's not.
A lot of exercise, a lot of
Yeah,
movement.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I see so many women like this, Ben.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many that are like fitness fanatics.
As long as she is getting enough nutrition and protein during her window, she might be able to get away with a variation of intermittent fasting. Maybe it's like a 16-8, where 16 hours she's fasted and she has 8 hours to get in all of her nutrients, her calories, her protein, and her supplements. But if she's not, like if she doesn't have like that 8 hour window is not enough time to get in all that, she might want to your point, decrease the fasting window and increase the eating window.
Mhm. That's the other problem I have with it is midlife women, I preach constantly, and everybody else in this space does too, that protein has to be your number one. Like
Yeah.
that, go ahead and follow whatever diet you're going to follow, but you have got to make everything's got to be protein forward. You got to make sure that you're eating 1 gram of protein to every ideal pound of body fat. That's a lot of protein to get in.
Yeah.
You need to at least be eating 3 meals a day, if not more, in order to get like actual, like you're going to chew your protein, right? Yes, we can supplement with some shakes and amino acids, and I think that's all really important. People should do that. But when you're trying to be protein forward and you're trying to get in all of this protein that everybody's telling you to get in, how do we fit in the fasting into that? Because we want the benefits of the insulin sensitivity because we're more metabolically, challenged at this time in our life. So we want the benefit. We want the autophagy and the anti-aging benefits. Where's the happy medium? What would you recommend we do? What should all of us women do, Ben?
That's a lot of pressure on me.
Right? There is. I want the
You're
perfect
right.
answer.
Yeah, perfect. Oh my gosh. Protein is important. Yeah, 1 gram protein per pound of your ideal body weight. Uh, if you hit that 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight most days, let's say 5 days out of the week,
Yeah.
you're going to be in good shape. I'm okay with a day or two not hitting that. And here's why, because the body will recycle some of this, what Dr. Fung calls damaged protein, but it'll recycle bad protein and build up healthier protein. So it's okay some days, 1 or 2 days out of the week to be in a protein deficit. That's okay. But most days you got to hit that. So on those most days, the 5 days in this scenario, you want to find a fasting schedule if you want to practice fasting that allows you to get that protein in the window. Maybe it's an 8 hour eating window, maybe it's a 10 hour eating window. Maybe it's no fasting, and that's okay. On the other 2 days or one day, you could get the benefits of fasting, insulin sensitivity, gut repair, even throw in maybe a 24-hour fast once per week to get those benefits of a fast on a day versus getting intermittent fasting benefits on the other days. So there's different ways to do this. If all else fails, if you're having trouble getting in the protein, then yeah, essential amino acids are great to fill in the gap. You could consume 50, 70, heck, even 100 grams of protein in a single meal, and you'll absorb that as long as you have the enzymes in place. We used to
Mm.
think you could only
Yeah.
metabolize 40 grams or 30. That's not
Yeah.
true. No, studies are showing, even studies showing 100 grams of protein you could use in a single meal, in a single bolus, as long as you have the enzymes in place to break it down. So you could take digestive enzymes to break it down. Anything that's excess, you'll just excrete during through your urine. Your body will get rid of it and via pneumonia. So there's many ways to do this, many different variations, but you want to make sure you're getting that protein most days.
Oh, I could never eat that in one sitting. I
I
have
could.
such a shut off. I know I've seen you.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Yeah,
have gone for dinner with you,
that's right.
Ben, when you were carnivore, and it was incredible what I saw you put back. Like, I'm like, oh my God, he just had like three salmon burgers, a chicken breast, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did have all that. Yeah, you remember.
a couple of hamburger patties. And yeah, it was, but no, I have a switch. Like it just, after a
Yeah.
certain amount, it just shuts off. And I think most people do. And I talked to you about this last time I spoke to you. Did you ever interview the guys that wrote the book, the Eat Like the Animals?
I have not. No,
Ah, yeah, and you've got
I
to.
know.
You
I'm
would love
sorry.
them. The book is so great. If I had it, I'd just send it to you, but I think I gave it to my
Was
sister.
was that the protein leverage hypothesis where they talked about that, or was that something else?
Well, that we're hardwired to keep eating
Yep, that's it.
until we meet a protein threshold in the
Yeah,
system. And so you will overeat carbohydrates trying to get your protein in. When if you would just eat the bloody protein first, then you're not going to eat as much and you're not going to crave as much food because you've met the protein threshold
yeah,
that you need. So it's
yeah. That
fascinating.
it is. I believe that.
And they see it in the animal kingdom. And that's what they studied. They were seeing it all over the animal kingdom that they were eating these like perfect ratios of food without obviously, measuring their food or
yeah,
calorie counting. Like these chimpanzees were eating the perfect amount of food to get their perfect amount of protein in.
yeah. It
It was
makes sense to me.
crazy.
I think we do the same thing. Yeah, the protein
Yeah.
leverage hypothesis. It makes complete sense to me.
In the ketogenic world, it's hard to get in enough protein once again, because then it'll kick you out of ketosis.
Well, here's the thing. I have found that for most people it doesn't. Because I used to think it does, but
Mhm.
here's what I have seen happen. What in the beginning of getting somebody from burning sugar to burning fat, I do have them eat a lot of healthy fat, and I don't really focus on protein in that first week, the first 7 days. It's more of a high
Mhm.
fat, moderate protein, low carb. Once I get them in ketosis and they're what I call fat adapted, then we dial down the fat and we get the protein, which is that recommendation, 1 gram of protein per pound of our ideal body weight. And I have found that when we do it this way, and every 100 grams of protein, about 60 grams of that is turned into sugar via gluconeogenesis. So if you have, I don't know how to do the math here, but 50 grams is whatever 60% of that is of protein, of gluconeogenesis. So the extra glucose that's increased from the protein is actually being used to refill your glycogen stores, your muscle and liver cells, not necessarily increasing your blood sugar levels enough to kick you out of ketosis for most people. There are some exceptions here. So I used to think, yeah, too much protein can be an issue on keto, gluconeogenesis. Then I actually started testing it on hundreds and then thousands of people, and I realized, wow, when they're fat adapted, they're not really seeing an increase in their blood sugar. And what's happening is they're just replenishing or refilling their glycogen stores, and there's not excess glucose happening because of that,
Mm.
because their glycogen stores are depleted when they're doing this. So, yeah, for most people, it's not an issue. It's really not. Now, if you see it being an issue, you could start spreading out your protein and kind of modulating that. But for most people, I haven't seen it be an issue.
Wow. Do you think most people should be leaning towards ketogenic diets?
I think we should use it as a tool. It's a metabolic process more than a diet, and I think most people could benefit from having some variation of it. I think a
Mhm.
lot of people say I would never do keto, but when I explore their lifestyle, I would find that they might tap in and out of ketosis unknowingly. Like they might be so metabolically flexible and active that they're done eating, let's say at 7 p.m., they go to bed, they eat at 7 a.m., but before they eat that 7 a.m. meal, if it's a high carb meal, they might be in ketosis. They might have trace amounts of ketones. I do see it being valuable, especially for postmenopausal women, because at this point, you're more insulin resistant
Mhm.
and your brain cells are not using glucose as efficiently either. So ketones are incredible for postmenopausal women's brain to help with brain fog, mental clarity, productivity. So I do see it as a valuable tool. Now, I don't think you should do it forever. I'm a big fan of going in and out, but I do see it as a valuable tool for most people. Yes.
Are you normally always doing keto? I know you go through your stages of carnivore, but do you just personally usually stay in the keto camp?
The keto camp. I'm probably in ketosis 70% of the time, 80% of the time, and then 20 to 30% of the time I'm out of ketosis. So usually Saturday, Sunday, I get myself out on purpose, and then weekdays I'm in it. Kind of
How
my
do you,
routine.
what do you do to get yourself out of it? Are you like, oh, I know that you're not, but most people would be like, ah, it's the weekend. Now I'm going to let everything fly and I'm going to eat the French fry. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to drink the beer. I'm going to, they really come off that wagon. I could imagine that you don't do that.
I don't
How
do
do you
that.
pull
Yeah.
yourself out? What are you doing to get out of ketosis?
Yeah, so I actually don't do that. I call it a feast day, not a cheat day. Is a big difference.
Yep.
And in metabolic freedom, in the 30-day reset at the end of the book, the last week I have two of these what I call metabolic flex days. This is what I do. So let's say Sunday, I will intentionally not fast. I'll take my carbohydrates from either under 50 grams or sometimes zero from doing carnivore to 200 to 300 grams of carbs on that day from healthy carbohydrates. So fruit, sweet potatoes, I'll have white rice,
Mhm.
and I'll actually lower my fat intake because I don't want to increase carbs and
And
have
fat.
high fat at the same time. Yeah, that's a disaster. So low fat day, high protein, high carb day, and I feast. I eat all day long. I have masa chips. Have you tried masa chips before?
No.
Oh, they're so good. Organic corn tortilla cooked in beef tallow. Yeah. So I'll have a whole bunch of healthy carbs on that day. But it's healthy carbs. And I'll intentionally get out of ketosis. And then Monday, I'm right back into ketosis. And that's metabolic freedom. It's metabolic flexibility.
Do you ever eat chocolate cake?
I'll have chocolate cake if it's gluten free. Yeah, I will.
Okay, so you're pretty strict with yourself.
I'm pretty good. I'll
Yeah.
have gelato and ice cream if it's no seed oils or gluten in it. But
Yeah.
the only two things I don't have gluten, I don't have seed oils. I don't make
That's
an
your
exception for
okay.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't do well with gluten,
Yeah.
or do
I
you
don't have
just everything
celiac.
you know about it?
Yeah, no, I just personally feel off whenever I consume it. So I just don't do it.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's good to know. Good to know how strict you are. I have definitely found that if I just listen to my body, I seem to know what to do hormonally, I think. Like
I
just
love
there'll
it.
be times of the month where I'll actually eat oatmeal, which I am super anti oatmeal. Like, let me tell you, I have cut people that I'm like, oatmeal is not this like great heart healthy food that's going to be so amazing for you. Like, it has so many
Sure.
carbs, it's going to spike your glucose. It makes you feel sick. Well, it makes me feel sick sometimes. But I started to add in just a little bit, like I'm talking like a third cup, but then I match it with ground flaxseed.
Ah, interesting.
So it's super high in fiber, high phytoestrogen, the highest phytoestrogen food. And then I put Timeline Nutrition in it, the
Hmm.
powder,
Yeah,
and a half scoop of bone broth protein powder
that sounds pretty legit.
with heavy cream,
Yum.
which I probably shouldn't do the carb and cream, but high fat. But yeah,
Yeah, but that's
delicious.
not too much. That sounds, I agree with you with oatmeal. I think it's not a health food and it's
No.
not heart healthy. With that being said, I actually love the taste of oatmeal.
Oh, same. It's like
Yeah,
dessert.
it's so good. So for
Yeah.
me, I would have oatmeal on one of my flex days.
Yeah.
I haven't made it that style, but I would make sure it's organic because a lot of oats are sprayed with glyphosate. So it would have to be
Yes,
organic
mine
oats.
are
Yeah.
organic. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, it has to be.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. But sometimes I'm like, no, it seems way too sweet to me. And my body's like, hard no,
Yeah.
cannot do it. It's always right before my cycle. And I'll be like, I don't want to eat animal protein for breakfast. And so I'll have that instead. And it's crazy to me because I was always so anti, because usually it would just spike my blood sugar and I'd come crashing down,
Uh-huh. Happens to a
20
lot of
minutes
people.
later. Yeah, yeah. And I used to eat that all the time because back before I started paleo 15 years ago, that was what I did because I thought I was being healthy. Of course, like so many people, right?
So many of us have gone down that route.
Eat your whole wheat bread and oh my God. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. Well, I could keep picking your brain, but I know you're on a time crunch because you got many interviews to do. Tell us about your book. Tell us about what you get if people sign up beforehand, and I'll make sure that this airs before the book comes out so that people can take advantage of that.
You're amazing. I appreciate you, Karen.
Anything.
Thank you. The book is, as we talked about, it's called Metabolic Freedom. Dr. Mindy Pelz wrote the foreword. The first half of the book explains the problems, the main causes to metabolic diseases. We have to first identify the interference before we remove it. Second half is all about the solutions. Then it's all tied together in a 30-day plan, step-by-step plan. I hold your hand and show you exactly how to apply the information, because it's not just the information that's going to change your life, it's the application of
Mhm.
it. And then there's a whole bunch of delicious fat burning recipes at the end of the book, which people love. So it's available on hardcover, Kindle, Audible. I narrated the Audible myself. And we do have a special gift for your audience. Anybody who pre-orders it or even orders it, if you're listening to this after it's released, which is May 13th is the release, you could get a free course on the metabolism that I built out, entirely free. We don't collect the credit card and charge you later. It's completely free. 12 lessons on the metabolism. And with that course, I included some special interviews with Dr. Jason Fung, who you mentioned
Ah,
earlier,
great.
Megan Ramos, Dr. Daniel
Oh,
Pampa, and
yep.
Cynthia Thurlow. These are only in this course. You cannot find it anywhere else. So if you go to metabolicfreedombook.com, you can see different retailers for the book, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, wherever you want to buy it. But you go to that page and you put your name, email, and then order number, and you're instantly sent access to the course and the interview. So it is metabolicfreedombook.com.
Amazing. I can't wait to read it. I'm going to do the 30-day reset.
Yes. I,
Yeah.
I I would love for you to do it, and I'll get you a physical copy of the book too.
Yes, I need a physical copy of the book for
I'll
sure.
get you
I
one. I
like physical
promise.
copies. I don't do the online reading thing. I don't, no,
I'm
I like
same.
books.
I
Yeah.
don't do it. I do Audible a lot, but I'll also buy the paperback. I'll do both. I'll buy the Audible and I'll buy the actual physical copy. Yeah.
That's great. And I'll put everything in the show notes, everyone, of course, and where you can buy the book. And if you're listening to this, it's right away, then it'll be on pre-order, but it's coming out so soon within, oh my gosh,
Right around the
yeah,
corner.
yeah, you're so fast. Oh my
I know.
gosh.
It's right around the corner.
Exciting
I
for
know.
you. And do you still have your group?
What group?
You had a paid group, didn't you? Like where people
Oh
could
yeah,
come
yeah.
work with
I
you?
have my programs. Yeah, yeah. I have my Keto Camp Academy, Fat Loss Academy, different groups. Yes. If you just go to my website, benazadi.com, you could see some of the programs that I offer. Yes, I
Okay,
forgot. Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, yes. You should be talking about that too, because people are going to read your book and then they're going to want to work with you. And
Yes,
there you
yes.
go. And
Yeah.
if anybody that's listening, if you guys ever get the chance, go see him talk in person. We were just talking about these conferences before we started to record, and Ben is being asked to speak all over the world right now. He was just in Dominican Republic. He is amazing to watch speak. You will laugh, you're going to cry, and you're going to walk away with the feeling like you just gained a new friend. And that's the energy that he gives. And he's really great to see in person and great to meet in person as well. So thank you,
Sweet.
Ben. You're always a pleasure to speak to. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Karen. You're also, I love and appreciate you. You're an incredible friend, but you're also an incredible speaker as well. So if you ever get a chance to watch Karen speak, she holds the audience in the palm of her hands and she tells it like it is. She's funny, informative. So yeah, I could say the same thing about you. I appreciate you, Karen. Thank you.
This is about you, not about me, Ben, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.